Welcome to Testable Faith. I'm Ken Samples, and today we're joined by visiting scholar Tassos Lycurgo. Tassos, it's a pleasure to have you with us here at Reasons to Believe. We're very honored.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me here.
I'd like to talk a little philosophy and apologetics with you in this topic. And you raised a particular philosopher named Paulo Freire. His dates are 1921 to 1997, so he died just before the beginning of the 21st century. He was a Brazilian educator and philosopher. Some have said his influence on education was like that of John Dewey, one of the great educators in America. Tell us a little bit about why you think he was such a critical philosopher, and what are some of the challenges that are raised? Because he was a Marxist in his own beliefs.
Yeah, Paulo Freire and John Dewey, they were discovered by UNESCO, and UNESCO discovered that they could use those thinkers to use them in their education. And Brazil is doing that. I think other places as well. There's even here in the States,
yes.
Paulo Freire has a huge influence in education. The thing is that in their ideas, there is no something to be discovered. You have to construct the knowledge inside yourself. Of course, in the basis of the thinking, we have relativism.
Yeah.
The idea that there is no truth. A consequence of it is the idea that there is no something to be unveiled, to be discovered. You have to construct the knowledge inside yourself.
Talk a little bit about this movement, and obviously in Marxist thought you have an analysis of society in terms of economics. Feudalism in the Middle Ages is confronted by capitalism, and the synthesis of those would be world communism. But I think it's interesting, your assessment, that the Marxist thought here is a movement away from just pure economics and an application of ideology toward the culture and society. Speak to that issue a little bit. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Marxism started as an economic thinking, right? I mean, his idea was that we have the economic infrastructure and we have the ideological superstructure, and
yes.
everything that was done in the infrastructure, economic infrastructure, would affect the ideological side. But and therefore, his idea to explain how society would work was that we had like feudalism that would undergo some conflicts, internal conflicts, and then
that's that thesis antithesis idea.
Exactly. Then we would have a bourgeois revolution, and then capitalism, and then again the conflicts, internal conflicts, and we would have a proletariat revolution or workers' revolution, and therefore we would have communism. It was Marx's ideas. So everything is in the economic field.
Yeah.
Feudalism, capitalism, and then communism. So the conflict would be always in the economic language, like workers against employers.
So the bourgeoisie, they would be the owners, they would be the wealthy, the bourgeoisie would be the worker, the proletariat would be the workers.
Yeah, bourgeoisie is those who, they are the owners of means of production.
Okay.
Right? Like bankers, owners of property and everything. And the proletariat are those who sell the labor power to survive.
Right.
These are the definition of bourgeoisie and proletariat.
Okay.
But the problem is that Marx's idea that Marx and Engels' idea that we would have every society working that way didn't come up to be true.
Right.
It didn't work. Even in the Russian Revolution in 1917, there was something that didn't work that way. In Russia Revolution, we have a feudal system that evolved to a communist system without a relevant bourgeoisie. So it's a counter example to the Marxist theory.
So this is the Leninism conflicted with the way Marx said it would cash out.
Lenin was a clever man, right? So he realized that Marx's ideas don't work. So what he did was to move towards ideology, move away from economy a little bit towards ideology. So Lenin, when you study what Lenin did, is pretty much political. It's not so much economical.
Yeah.
So, but Lenin started to do that. But we had a thinker after that, Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci, a thinker, he was under arrest under Mussolini's regime, and when he wrote his prison's notebooks or prison's book letters.
This is in the early 1920s.
Yeah, that's right. So Antonio Gramsci made a huge revolution in Marxist ideas. What Gramsci said was that instead of acting in the economic field, we're going to act now directly in the ideological field, meaning that instead of doing the division in the economic field between employers, workers, bourgeoisie, proletariat, this division to conquer will be now in the ideological field. So nowadays there are all sorts of divisions in the ideological field to divide people, to conquer them. So you have like men against women, black against white, indigenous against non-indigenous, homosexual against heterosexual. So it is a kind of collectivism. They try to put people into categories to have domination over them. So this is what's happening nowadays. Many people don't see it.
And when we talk about ideology, we are talking about a manipulation. We're talking about propaganda in the way it's utilized.
That's right. The main aim of this movement is to manipulate, to dominate, to have dominion over people. For example, if you are, let's say, indigenous people in Brazil, for example,
sure,
they are not 100% free to plant what they want, to speak the language they want. They can't choose to put their kids in a Portuguese-speaking school. The government wants them to put their kids in their own language, school. It's hard. I mean, they could do that if they wanted, but it shouldn't be an imposition from the state, from the government. Because if you choose to put your kid, for example, in a school that doesn't speak Portuguese, but speaks, let's say, Magueta, Ticuna Magueta, which is one of these indigenous languages in Brazil. Brazil has lots of indigenous languages. Not many people know that. We have over 200 indigenous languages. Yeah. So if you put a kid in a school like that, it's really hard to get a good physics teacher for him, good math teacher for him speaking Ticuna Magueta. I mean, only few people speak that, right?
Yeah.
So there is no freedom. In the end of the day, the problem is that the government is restricting our freedom, our liberty.
Yeah.
Let the family choose. It's not about school to choose. It's not for the school to choose, not for the government to choose. So people are slaves of the government in places like Brazil, for example. And it is happening everywhere in the Western civilization.
That's right. Including the United States of America, Canada, Europe.
Yeah, that's true. And the States is a little bit stronger for one reason. This country was founded on the creed. The biblical foundations of the United States makes this country much more stronger than the others. But Americans have to be careful about what is happening.
Now, in offering a critique of this Marxist approach, it seems to me one very powerful critique is that Marxism has never worked economically, and now it's not working culturally. It is leading. It's not allowing human beings to flourish, to have a robust life, let alone a rejection of belief in God, a rejection of objective morality and things of that nature.
That's right. It's not that big. The reason that Marxism is not so much into economy is not that they don't want to, but the reason is that they realize they are not able to. No one can control the laws of economics.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Every time you want to do that, you just know you fail the country, you break the country. It's happening everywhere. Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela, there are places where they are still trying to do that. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So Marxism in nowadays, communism is nowadays is about ideology, not about economy. Just go to China.
Yeah.
U.S. used to be the first economic partner of Brazil. And nowadays, it is China.
Wow.
This is something. I mean, U.S. currency is not used anymore in the trades Brazil is doing with China.
Very good. Well, again, it is a pleasure to have you, Tassos. If you want to learn more about our visiting scholar, Tassos Lycurgo, you can go on to the rtbreasons.org, and there are lots of resources available. Tassos, thank you again.
Thank you, sir.